us, by the way?
I'm here.
By the way, one final comment on that. I just looked to the right of my screen and I see that Jesse Garcia is on the call with us. He's one of our support engineers, and he's the guy that actually did the hard work of reading through both of those standards, comparing them to the policies that we're managing in Fortify, and correctly doing all the mapping. So for any of you that you can see Jesse over there, you can give him a big attaboy, because that was a big job to do that work.
Attaboy.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for doing that. All right. And I know there's some stuff going on too, Jim, with Mr. Strand on the background. That's exciting. I don't know if I tip any of that off yet, but yeah, and Goose, we do have a special guest today. But Jim, I wanted to see, before we get into wins of the week, did you have anything? Were you at True Methods at all this week? Was the team?
I was. I just got back from Troop here.
Okay.
And it was great. It was awesome. You know, if you're, I'm not, this is not a commercial for Gary or peer groups in general, but I see, we go to a lot of these events and I see the progress quarter over quarter that these MSPs are making that are in these peer groups. And I think it really helps. Obviously, I mean, just it's math. It's just looking at the data, and we see that a lot of our MSPs that are in peer groups, are growing and sharing best practices and focused on the right metrics, right? So, definitely a big believer, and we got a lot of really great comments from the crowd there, and walked them through SaaSonomics, and that was very well received.
Very good. Very good. Are you seeing more adoption, or the ones that are adopting more proliferation of it across their customers, Jim? And
Yeah, definitely. Token hijacking comes up almost in every conversation. And some have known about it for a while, some are just kind of getting hip to it now, but it feels like everyone has got customers that have been victimized in some way, shape, or form at this point.
yeah, no doubt.
And they're looking for solutions. They want to protect everybody for it. So yeah, we're this week alone, we've seen, I don't know, close to 10,000, 12,000 new users in the platform.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Good to hear it. All right. Wins of the week. Anybody want to step up? We had an incredible amount of participation last week, Jim. I would be fantastic if we had it again this week. Anybody want to step up and kick off wins of the week? Anybody taking a peek around here?
I'll start, Andrew, while we're waiting for everyone to get the nerve up. Number one, I'm disappointed that whenever I'm not here, we have a lot of win of the week participation from our partners. I always seem to miss it.
It was
I think you need to take
30 minutes worth of
right.
stuff.
Yeah,
Wow.
maybe Chip needs to take every other week off.
Yeah, there we go.
And I see Steven's got something, so it'll be good to hear.
I'll start with the SaaS Alerts win of the week. Yesterday, or was it Tuesday? Tuesday. Literally almost a month ahead of schedule, we were fully certified by the ISO certification standard. So we had passed our second stage audit at the beginning of the month. We were told it would take up to a full month to have our certification approved, but we got it in under 2 weeks. So reinforcing our commitment to you guys to maintain top shelf security, and that was a big win, for our whole team, but especially for our risk committee, which really managed that process. Leron, myself, Harsh, and Keith, our VP of audit. So big win, and we're really happy about it.
Congrats again. I know we've talked about it a little bit, Chip, over the course of the weeks, but again, I'm going to sound biased with you guys being on your call, but I haven't seen a lot. Maybe it's just I'm not catching it, but I would like to. It's good to see you guys, kind of carrying the mantle of what good security looks like from a vendor in our community. There was this time where I just saw ScalePad got their SOC 2, so that was cool. But there was a time where, there was this, after some of the compromises, from vendor compromises, that it seemed like there was an uptick in people and vendors getting more serious about security. And maybe they are, or just not vocal about it, but I'm not seeing as much as I would like to see. I don't know how you guys out there all feel, but yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of effort, but you can see the difference in companies that kind of have that culture and don't. So
Yeah,
that's,
Andrew, that's a really good point. And actually, I want to ask this group here, like, is this important? Is the fact that we went out and spent the time and money, put the resources toward doing this, becoming ISO certified, does that make a difference to you? Is that important?
yeah.
Yes.
Would you have cared if they did?
I think it's going to become critical for cloud vendors to be SOC 2 certified.
Yeah,
Not just SOC 2,
absolutely.
ISO. Go ahead.
ISO.
Sorry.
Excuse me.
ISO is a whole
Yeah.
different level, Andy.
Yeah.
SOC 2 is Little League baseball.
It is Little League baseball. Yeah, I mean, and maybe Chip, you can give an example, because you literally could say I'm SOC 2. You basically scope it, Andy. Like you could say, I want to be SOC 2 for this piece of my business. But you could be completely Swiss cheese in a bunch of different areas. You could have poor, configuration database management. You could have poor code practices. Fair chip, it can be very specific, very limited in terms of what you're getting your audit on.
Yeah, the misconception about SOC 2 is that SOC 2 is not a standard, right? So let's use HR for example. So the purpose of a SOC 2 audit is for an auditor to come in and look at the processes that you've documented, and then attest to the fact that you are doing what you say you're supposed to do. But you're allowed to say, for instance, our HR policy in hiring new people is to take their pulse and make sure that their eyes are open at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's it. Like there's no requirement in SOC 2 that says you must put people through a background check and you must have formal hiring practices and offboarding practices. There's no standard that says you have to do that. So the only way to really get value out of SOC 2 is to choose a framework. The original SOC 2 framework that everybody used to choose was called COBIT. Now more and more people are choosing things like NIST or CIS or ISO as their frameworks, and they're being audited against those frameworks. That's how you really get true validation and value out of it. Most SOC 2 auditing firms are smart enough to encourage their customers to actually put in place real processes, because that's where the value is. I think a SOC 2 should be part of every MSP's journey, personally. SOC 2 Type 2 specifically, because it's the way you demonstrate to your customers when they're doing vendor assessments, which hopefully some of them are starting to do. And as you guys do vendor assessments on behalf of your customer for their other vendors, it's an important starting point of legitimacy that they have documented processes, and then a third-party auditor is validating that they're being followed.
I would also say for yourself, not just for your customers. It shows for yourself, like you have a lot of times we have, we don't look in the mirror and go, wow, I didn't realize I had deficiencies here or process gaps here, or right. So I think it's just as much for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We cut Stephen off, by the way. Stephen had something to say before.
Yeah. Sorry.
I was just gonna, follow up and, confirm, going through one of these, assessments for a customer and helping them, we're advising them to, require, vendors be certified in some sort of standard, or have a, either a, membership to organizations. And so we're telling them to start requiring this stuff. And so having SaaS alerts have that level is going to make that, smooth to share in the future.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Steve, while we have you, you had a win too.
I was going to say, just a little one. Other people may have done this already, but we, are Microsoft CSP partners, and so we added a tenant and connected that org in our SaaS alerts. So all of those events and sign-ins are coming into the system.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
internal house stuff.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So first of all, thanks for folks chiming in on the certification. It's a question I have because I see other vendors in our space that I feel like, based on how big they are and how much love they get on Reddit, they should have an ISO or at least a SOC 2 Type 2, and I don't believe they do. So I was just curious how people felt about that.
So
Are you guys going to make an announcement for this?
Yes, next week is coming out, so you guys know first. As our promise to this community all the time, we tell you first about everything, right? So I'll ask you to keep it on your hats. It's going out next week in a press release, and I have a number of media interviews next week. So talking about it, as well as something else is coming out. So it's all exciting. But I see Nadeem, who was at Troop here this week. I had breakfast with him, and he was telling me some really interesting things. So I actually brought him on stage with me this past week at Troop here.
Yeah, Jim, it was awesome, and I didn't get to say what I wanted to say. Well, there wasn't a lot of time.
Yeah.
But before I get into that, getting your certification, that is awesome, because that was one of the things that was kind of eating away in the back of my mind, because all of our vendors have to be at least SOC 2 audited, because we are SOC 2 audited, and it's very hard for us to be SOC 2 audited when some of our vendors are not. So awesome job on that.
Thank you.
The other thing, Jim, I wanted to say is we use, SaaS alerts. The way we go to customers is that we use telemetry from our tools to detect anomalies. And this is something that our customers understand. And when we onboard a customer, and this was a real world example, and then the system goes out and shuts down somebody's account, instead of the customer coming to us and saying, oh, why'd you shut our user down? They're actually happy. They thank us that, hey, thanks for looking out for us, that you guys did that. So SaaS alerts not only allows us to say that we use telemetry to make intelligent decisions, but actually does that for us. And that's awesome, Jim.
Great. Thank you, Nadeem. And thank you again for coming on stage with me on the other day that Troop here. That was great.
Do we celebrate any loss of the week? Do we celebrate any loss of the week?
Go for it, Enrique.
Yeah.
Had a customer server encrypted this morning.
Right.
Oh boy.
So they get for running 2008 and removing our stack from it. So
Yeah.
Running 2008.
Thankfully, we don't do
Yeah.
anything with on-prem. So
they had a legacy software that runs on DOS and couldn't run on anything else. And we still had a basic stack for Windows 2008 on it. But they decided to remove it. And well, that's the outcome.
So
So
let
the
me get this
encryption
straight.
happened after they removed it?
Yes.
And then they called you up and said, can you come back and fix it?
That more like let me know. It's a co-managed environment. But obviously it still feels like a loss for me.
Introduce them to ARC. We can't even go back to ARC. Never mind. That's only 2012.
Some black suit, the extortioner named Black Suit, the file they left. They extracted the data as well, because we see the graphs. We pulled the graphs from their Meraki router, and yeah, it's April 9th they started extracting data.
how big a customer are we talking about? How many employees?
About 26. It's a law firm.
Oh,
Ooh,
boy.
it's expensive. Reputation.
Yeah.
Do they have cyber insurance, Enrique?
They do not. They
Oh.
hadn't. They had not met all the conditions yet. We've been pushing them. We finally have MFA on all the users, authenticated with Android ID on the devices, but they still had not. There was one or two items still pending. They have their own IT guys, so they move at their rhythm. But yeah, it's still, I take it as a big loss because they're our customer.
Enrique,
Chad asked, their backup?
That's not a good. That's
That's not a good
reaction.
laugh.
Yeah, digital backup on their own devices, on another device on the NAS, which is also encrypted.
Oh my
Just say on the same
God.
on the same probably subnet, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
Oh my-
I'm
So every-
wondering if the law firms are being targeted. We had one earlier this year, which was a law firm. It was an 80 user law firm. And now I'm hearing this from Enrique. Is there some agency or somebody who keeps track of this for small companies who don't have cyber insurance and don't report in?
I don't.
Agent,
I was just going to say, Nadeem, I don't, with all due respect, I don't think it's that sophisticated. I don't think threat actors, unless it's nation state specifically targeting, I don't think, and again, I'll air to Corey here, who I'm going to put on the spot. He was awesome this week on the cyber call. I'm putting in, by the way, if you missed that, it's not about, was it a law firm, a medical, an architect? It's where is the low hanging fruit? Corey's on a call. Okay, no problem. But that's what it is, Nadeem. I don't. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah,
really in
I-
companies that small.
yeah.
Nation states, of course, what they did with Midnight Blizzard and Microsoft, highly targeted. They knew exactly what they were doing, why they were doing it. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, no doubt.
reached out to Huntress just so they could monitor from the 9th forward on all the other machines to see if they saw any anomalies.
Yeah.
Anybody want to take a wild guess where they came in from?
email. Who would have thought?
No, you're talking geography, Enrique.
No. Well, I
RDP?
still, they send me the logs. I haven't combed through them, but well, somebody already said the magic word.
That's how the law firm that we were working with. We were working on a project. We weren't the MSP of record. Another company was, actually a large nationwide MSP was. But the same issue. They came in via RDP and encrypted all their servers, and of course they didn't have good backups of everything. Only some of the stuff, which wasn't my headache anyway. But I'm wondering if there is something to that, or if there is somebody keeping track. Here's why I ask, and Andrew, you might have an answer to this. So when we've signed up for our E&O policy and all that, we got to where the insurance guys are going to report to the state on our behalf if there is a breach. And
Correct.
we're a small company. So if somebody's reporting on our behalf for us, is nobody reporting for these 20, 30, 40 user companies?
It's not I think really what we're talking about in terms of quote unquote reporting is, first and foremost, is it a company that's regulated? That's gonna, so in other words, there's a requirement, right? So if you're a cyber insurance company and there's EPHI or something like that, that's a whole different animal than, you as the MSP. Now, you as the MSP, the reason they want to know, for example, who potentially your customers are you monitoring customers that are regulated and that do have, a reporting requirements, whether it happens to, like I said, it happens to be, PHI data, financial data, whatever it may be, to the regulated bodies. Does that make sense to you, Chip?
It does, and I was going to add that for private companies, unless they get law enforcement engaged as part of either a forensic process or to help with a negotiation on ransom, it's not going to get reported. I mean, law enforcement basically has to get engaged. But we've actually talked on this call a lot, and I've done with Jim and on my own a number of presentations at events around what are you doing and what are you counseling your customer to do. Right a boom. I love using the phrase, Andrew, when we got you in here. How are you managing this? How are you securing all of the evidence? Are you contacting an attorney who has expertise in in negotiating with with these cyber terrorists? Are you bringing in law enforcement? Like, those are all things that we've talked about as steps. So I'm curious to hear from both of you. What did you tell these customers, and how did they react to that?
First question was, what happened to our stack? Second question was going operationally, request data. We don't manage the router, request data from their IT guy that manages the router to see what was extracted, or if we could see any traffic patterns showing or confirming extraction. And then just talking about what they had backed up or not. There was an old system that they would use for old cases, so they really didn't use it actively. They had a new system in since 2021. So I think they have like a year of data missing, not the digital files, but the actual CRM or whatever the system's called. Go ahead, Andrew.
Quick question. Did someone said fish email, and then you said, was it RDP?
RDP.
So do these guys not understand that? Did they open it up? Did they understand that Shodan just presented that to the world? Like
we have tickets after tickets where Huntress picks it up open, requested to close, requested to close, requested to close, and they would claim they were just doing some changes so they can close it. We don't have control of the router, so past that, we can't show up with guns blazing and just do it ourselves. It's just, it doesn't matter why it happened, and it's always coming back to human error and stupidity. It's most of the time.
This is a business level discussion to have with with any customer, any prospect even. They rely on someone to take care of this stuff, and they're going to make mistakes, and without some sort of validation process.
Yeah,
is there something around this that you would submit a report each month to management that says this port is vulnerable, or is that something that should be considered?
Well, the owners copy it on the emails.
All right.
The owners copy it on the communications.
So they're not choosing to contact any outside expertise to help them deal with the ransom request.
I asked them to file a report with the FBI, and then right now we have the server off. In this morning's call, I didn't know about extraction of data because I hadn't seen traffic patterns. Right now, I feel confident they did extract the data. So this is another call we have to have. We have another call here about in an hour. They're getting some systems up and running, which were dependent on that server. But yeah, now I'm not recommending them to pay. It's just with the data being out there, that's concerning.
The question is, are they a US-based law firm, Enrique?
Yes.
Okay.
They are.
And do they know what's in the data?
Yes, all the case file, their personal injury.
Okay.
So they're going to have medical records. They're going to have police reports. They're going to have notes. They're going to have PII. They're going to have HIPAA stuff, even though they're not in the medical industry, but they're going to have all this.
So they
sensitive.
They have a reporting issue on their hands. So if I'm your recommendation to them is attorney, them having counsel, because they're going to be liable if they don't report. Their biggest issue right now, their number one issue in facing them is reporting time.
Now, besides the FBI, any other reporting agencies?
No, Enrique, what an outside counsel is going to tell them, Enrique, is they have to notify their customers that this breach has occurred and that customer data is at risk. Even though they're not public, there's well-established court precedent that if they don't do that, they're negligent in warning their customers of a risk that their customers now have because of the attack.
They really
and
need... Sorry, go ahead, Ann.
There's state regulations too. So here in Massachusetts, there's pretty clear guidelines that you have to report that. And yeah, I think most states at this point. And we picked up a client, a law firm client around the same size about 2 years ago after they had a cyber incident. And they did have insurance. They would have been completely out of business if not. And that was an email. So I think they're juicy targets where the threat actors are highly likely to get a payment.
Yeah.
But they went through. But then the good news is they learned from it, and they're doing everything that we recommend for security, which is awesome. But they learned the hard way, and without insurance, they would not have been able to recover.
And nailed it. It's not just like what Chip said. It's the fact of the state agencies that, you know, from a reporting aspect, they will have they could have face massive fines if they don't report. I'm putting a LinkedIn for you, Enrique, in there. They don't have to use Spencer. He's an example. They need a breach attorney, and they need one fast if they haven't gotten.
I'm taking notes of all this as we speak. I greatly appreciate it. Do you recommend?
Yeah, then I was thinking that's just a contact, but yeah, that definitely the legal side, maybe.
Legal's number one right now for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because of the nature of their information.
Yeah, Andy can probably put a big exclamation point on this as somebody that works.
The clock is ticking.
Yeah, and Enrique, I think there are some time limitations. You have to report by a certain amount of time. In our case, the law firm had insurance. They got lawyers involved. I mean, they themselves were lawyers, but they got the right lawyers involved. And I think their deductible was like 20 grand or something on that insurance, which, you know, they had to come out with, but everything else was covered. And it was a long drawn out process. I mean, it took them, I think, like 3-4 weeks of digging in, doing forensics and all that stuff. So it's not something really small.
And they charge more than we do.
Yeah, Nadeem hit it because if they had cyber insurance, Enrique, what the cyber insurer does, their first call is to their team. They have a
Incident response.
They have a list of, I forget the term I want to use, but law breach attorneys. So the first call, that once they take the intake, they're going to get a breach attorney. The breach attorney is the quarterback on this that runs point for everything. So in Nadeem's case, once that insurance company is notified, the breach counsel is assigned. Then the breach counsel runs as the quarterback for everything. Who's the forensic firm coming in, right? Do you have a comms, agency? Do we have reporting? All these various aspects. That's the beauty of what Nadeem's client had that your customer does not.
Yeah,
Keep your ducks in a row too, Enrique. Make sure that you got yourself documented. That's going to be coming to you next.
Just by communicating in writing, or actually having them sign something saying,
if I'm you, to cover your SaaS in Jim's terms, you might want to put a call into Spencer as well, just to,
I reached out via LinkedIn right now as well. I mean, the number's on there. I'll call him, but
I learned a term about called subrogation. I'm sorry, I'm not pronouncing it properly.
Yep.
And they're gonna say, where are resources to pay for this? And they may attempt to come after you. And if you have clearly documented that you're not part of this, they're not going to come after your insurance policy. But that's one of the places they'll go.
Andy's spot on. They will look for funds at some point here. All right. So in
interest, I would.
Go ahead.
I was just going to emphasize: talk to the attorney first, because they will come after you, and find those emails, get them all together, because when there's money involved, things can turn pretty ugly.
And to Ann's point, if you have cyber insurance, Enrique, you're the deepest pockets right now, believe it or not.
Yeah, we do. Should I notify them as well, or no?
You don't have to notify your cyber insurance and not your incident, but you should seek counsel just to ask i.e. a Spencer, hey dude, here's what's going on. What should I do to make sure I'm clean in this? Because there's going to be, state reporting, client reporting, blah, 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 blah. And it's co-managed, and it wasn't my to do that the reason this, RDP got compromised but it's co-managed. So you want to stay away from this.
Get your contracts, get your emails so that you know you have boundaries, right? Around your service offering.
All right.
I'm gonna put it in writing and ask him to sign.
I wouldn't
Don't
do
do
that till you talk to
anything
an
until
attorney.
you talk to an attorney.
Okay. Okay.
Get the attorney's advice on what to do to cover yourself.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Enrique, I've got one last comment for you. I know Andrew wants to move on. This is a great learning opportunity for you and your organization, and you want to evaluate whether or not these kinds of clients who won't follow advice are even worth keeping as clients. You know, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. You know, if they're paying you so much that you can't use them, but it's one of those times where you can have a gut check and say, you know, should we even allow our clients to behave that way? And I know we have MSPs on this call and in our ecosystem that they draw really hard lines in the sand. And if clients won't take their recommendations and protect themselves, they don't do business with them.
Yeah.
Marcus, also be firmer on making things, if not putting a deadline and saying we're offboarding you.
That's,
So,
that's where being defensible counts.
yes, the last thing I'll say, and I'm going to introduce our guest, is Enrique, realize that anything you do, the reason I'm suggesting, I'm not an attorney, the reason I'm suggesting is to seek, and Ann's saying this, and I think, you know, Chip, attorney first, anything you do is discoverable. Okay, so do not put things in writing until you have advice from somebody that works these day in and day out, like Spencer. So you've got client attorney privilege, you know, and you're not putting yourself out there. Well, why did you do this? Why did you do this? Why did you put this thing out there? Kind of seems making you a little guilty that you want to make them sign something. You don't know how this is going to play out. So
Been in court many times, so you just rang a bell there, Andrew, of what would be coming.
yes. Sorry, I'm being a little passionate. I've been through too many of these already. So, all right. So, let me share out my screen. By the way, if Corey's back, Corey, you did a hell of a job on the cyber call. I put your link in there, for the full, cyber call. It was awesome. People commented it was one of the best ever, that they attended. So, great job. All right. So before I introduce our guest this week, and what made me think about this was something, you know, we've, Jim and Chip, we've talked a lot about, things around LastPass and Okta and in fact, this, crypto chameleon phishing kit is just out, just in time to make everybody's week and day just that much more fun, which uses a phishing kit, which why I'm bringing in our expert this week, who founded it and built and sold, as he'll tell you, a very successful organization around this. And it's a topic because we do so much in M365 when we talk Google, it's a topic we really haven't covered, which are things called phishing kits. And my good friend Amit, who I'm going to introduce, also gave me a PDF for you all on complete end-to-end what phishing kits are and a whole packet for you. The other thing, each and every week I like to share with everybody is just how good, and I'll ask Amit in a minute if this possibly came from a phishing kit. This is one I got last night, which, man, they are getting better and better. And his, as he'll tell you, his
it wasn't me, Andrew.
But you know, they're getting so good. It's like, you know, you'd think, okay, most, you know, again, people not in our world, let's just say they're kind of looking for this stuff, right, Chip? Like, you know, no, that I didn't do that. I didn't have that charge. Well, guess where that's taking you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So putting on some, you know, obviously some malware and possibly some C2 here. Obviously that's what they're, you know, banking on, no pun intended, that you that you click on. So I wanted to set the stage for our awesome guest, Amit Israel. Amit, welcome. And if you could maybe give us a touch of a background about you and I have known each other, gosh, now I think 8 years since you got into the MSP space. Tell us about the awesome company you built and sold and what you're doing today. And thanks for giving your time to educate everybody.
Yeah, of course, everyone. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, we know each other for 8 years, which is a bit scary, I think.
Oh.
Anyway, my background is after 20 some years in the Israeli intelligence, I came out and founded a company called Cyberfish, which by intention was there to solve the phishing problem or to make it a lot easier to cope with. And we pretty much succeeded, at least at the beginning, and until we got acquired by Coffins, plus minus 3 years after founding the company. And today at Coffins, I'm the one that is handling all the channels, partnerships, alliances. And today we have already 42 million end users, which is pretty impressive when you look back and you see how we began. And actually, so obviously I love speaking about phishing because that's the thing. As I see it, that's the only thing that not only will not change, I mean, being the first vector of attack, that's the most surprising, I would say, innovative. And, coming from psychology point of view, social engineering, that's the one that will always surprise you. So you will see an email. So if the bank want to be great, he will probably be so good that he will imitate himself to a phishing kit. Like he will be so close to how phishing kit looks like. And that's the fight between two sides. And I think we'll have that discussion in a second. How we would get here and how they're doing that. And
so awesome intro. By the way, everyone, this is not just me having a conversation with Amit. Please chime in at any time. Chip, if you have anything too, because I think this is really fascinating. This is, when you start to understand just how available these threat actors make this, and this is again is an ecosystem, just like access brokers, right? I mean, there's a specific role that this organized crime industry of threat actors plays, right? And phishing kits is a big one. Fair?
Yeah, well, of course. So let's at the beginning ask a quick question. So why do they exist? Like why there are any phishing kits, right? And so I think there are two actual answers here, or two good ones. The first is because of the need to mass attacks, right? Like I'm a hacker, I want to attack now. Today, 20,000 clients or potential, targets. Not one, not two, not five, 20,000. It doesn't mean that at the end of it, like your client, by the way, the guy, the law firm, it doesn't mean that at the end of it, there won't be any surgical operation against one of them. But the beginning will be what I call mass spray of spam phishing, right? That's the cheapest and the low level, but the best one. So that first is the need with wide attacks. And the second is the fact that most of the hackers, I would say, are in low level of technology. So there are more thieves than hackers. They know a bit, they're young, they want to start something, they'll spray 20,000 phishing emails, they'll get 3,000 at the first night, and that's enough. Very low level. So what exactly are phishing kits? The definition, it's probably pre-made packages containing all the tools that a cyber criminal needs, to launch an attack in one place, super cheap as a possibility, that includes everything in it. fake website templates, phishing email templates, data collection forms, scripts, whatever you need is there. You just need to check box, activate it. We can elaborate that afterwards, but super fast. I don't know, 10 minutes out of your time, you're ready to attack 20,000 deployed email addresses, and that's it. So it sets up the kit.
Amit, did you see,
Yeah.
because again, you and I met in like 2016.
Yeah.
Did you see this is probably a silly question, but I'm going to ask it. COVID comes. Did you see a mass ramp in the types of kits and the availability of kits?
Yeah, so we had, so I would say a huge percentage of my company's success is thanks to the COVID merged with phishing kits. Various reasons for that, mainly tons of people sitting at home, a bit bored, a bit energetic, want to do something, and taking advantage of people sitting at home, running their businesses over there, less protected. Their alerts mechanism is probably a bit shut down, and they're responding to everything every time. And COVID was something that you couldn't ignore, you couldn't not read, you couldn't not click if it demanded something.
Right.
And any detail that they wanted you, if you can remember back then, every move that you made needed forms, approvals, flights, traveling as a whole. You just email something and then you need to provide tons of details about yourself and your whole life.
It was also a perfect time, right? I mean, and I'm curious, maybe I'll ask Chip this too, as we go into the election season. That was a perfect time where everybody wanted dissemination of information. Oh, hey, this variant. Oh, hey, this is the new way in which you need to mask, or these masks are available here, they're not available here. So, Chip, from your side, as the election season got kicked off, are you seeing differences in what you're seeing in SaaS alerts in terms of the types of alerts you're getting related to potential phishing? Are you seeing kick-ups in those areas?
No, we're really not. I mean, we were too young to have observed that in 2020, in the 2020 election season. The midterms, there's not a whole lot going on anyway. And in our case, I think there's very little political messaging going to business accounts. That's more of a consumer account issue than it is business accounts.
Okay.
People aren't generally donating to political candidates from their work account. Let's put it that way. That's not what they're using. But it may very well be a problem. I wouldn't know, but it may very well be a bigger problem on the personal account side. Google and I mean, I use Google and I also use Proton, and both do a good job of actually grabbing almost everything that's a phishing attempt or that's spam. At least on the personal side, and depending upon the tools that you have in place on the enterprise side, they'll do the same thing. Right. But stuff still gets through. I mean, I still see phishing emails creep through, mostly on the personal side, not as much on the corporate side. What I have seen an increase in, and Amit, I'm very interested in your thoughts on this, is the incidence of smishing, SMS phishing attacks. So I've seen a personal increase in this, and we've actually seen an uptick of this with our users, our team members here at SaaS Alerts, who are being smished by people impersonating our executives, which is fascinating. And fortunately, our people are smart enough to recognize it for what it is, or well trained enough, or a combination of both. But I've been fascinated by the increase in smishing.
Yeah.
Take a look at this, and as you lead in, Chip, look at that. I skipped 2 ahead, but to your point, yes, that is definitely a thing. Go ahead, Amit.
Just in time
yeah.
for the Bitcoin halving too. You're showing this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so first of all, I think you might be surprised about the real number of phishing that are going through. So I would say it's every seg, the best seg will not stop more than 50, 60%. It's true that it's stopping most of the spam phishing, but phishing kits will not be detected by the majority of the known segs, and you probably won't even know that you were attacked, in a sense that the purpose is not letting you know. The purpose is taking over one of your accounts and live in that account for a certain period of time, know what's going on in the organization, identify the serious people to go to, and then pick up leads how to get there. And then you'll find out. So at the end of it, you'll see the attack if you see it. I had a talk last week with one of the CEOs in an American company, and he told me about an incredible phishing kit. Eventually, we know it, but so it happens like that. He gets a phone call from his CFO, telling him, "Listen, I'll email you in a second for your approval, money transfer about what we spoke that last week. Yes. Please approve it ASAP. I need the money now because we're paying that. Thank you." Hangs up the phone, waits for the email, gets it a second before he approves it, the money transfer. He remembers something he didn't ask the CFO. He calls him and tells him, "Listen, Chris, we just talked. Remind me something." And listen, I'm in Miami. We didn't talk for, I don't know, 5 days. So, right. Classical fake.
So time out real quick.
That's, yeah.
So we're talking deep fake here too, Chip. And then question on me. Did the reason they were able to do that, do you think was the account compromised and he found communication?
Yeah.
Kind of what
Yeah,
happened?
so they started with a super simple phishing kit.
Okay.
They got in, grabbed one or two of the accounts there, I mean the emails, and read the emails.
Right.
Identified what's going on, the money that is going through, expected money transfers, and then they moved backwards, went with deepfake and other platforms, and so that's one example. Second, to your question, smishing is, we obviously know about it, we handle it. I'll just say that it's not more than, I don't know, 1% of what's going on. If you can say the phishing problem, I don't know, 1, 2, 3%, not more than that. So email stays the leading vehicle for all phishing attacks. But smishing is obviously the main problem here, is that it's on cell phone, usually, unless you configure that in a way that you can answer or you can handle your text messages on your computer and not necessarily only on your cell phone. It's a bit easier to cope with, but it's a known thing. So if I'll jump to the end of it for a second, how do you cope it? Significant training, identifying what you should get, what you shouldn't get, how it looks like. It's a lot more complicated smishing because you don't have the URL check or the other options that are visible in emails, which are less visible in SMS messages. But it's pretty rare, unique, and it's pretty recognizable. Yet still, right? If you'll speak in a second about the AI era, which we're in already, obviously, but we're just in the beginning of it, that will be, I would say that will be paradise for the phishing kits. And on the other hand, that will be the way to cope with this phishing kit by anti-AI detection. Because a time will come that the phishing kit will build itself. We didn't speak about that enough today, but the thing is that a phishing kit is built, for 20,000 users. It's usually not focused in one or two, so it will be very generic, mostly, right? It will be very generic. The AI will allow you to send 20,000 emails pinpointed to each and every one of the targets personally. And that will be a major change in the way that you can detect phishing or not. Right.
Got it. So that's kind of how you're seeing it evolve. In other words, they're gonna take the phishing kits and make them more personal based on leveraging, massive databases and configuring, using AI to configure it a little more personal.
Right. And there is a question. So today, if you want to purchase a phishing kit, so I think it's a bit illegal, and I'll say, now, how do you do it? But let's say you go to the dark web, obviously, and there you check for various places, forums and other places in which you can buy from criminals phishing kits. With AI, I'm not necessarily sure that you'll need to do that illegal move of entering to the dark web. It might skip that phase and then deliver that to you in various ways, but you don't necessarily need to enter some illegal kingdom in which you protect your identity. You don't want people to identify you, and whoever you're dealing with there is a criminal or law enforcement, right? In open world here, there might come a time which is around the corner, which these boundaries will not necessarily be so obvious, and the fights will be there, like how you can hold on to these boundaries. Like, it's great also for law enforcement to know that each and every one that is in the dark web has made that decision to go there. So if it's on legal, target there, he's okay. There's someone to value that. But if he's not, then he's made a decision to step in. If you're using AI tools that will do that automatically, they'll lose that portion of very, very significant legal side of portion.
So in interest of time on it, let's just kind of run through this like that.
Yep.
So one of the things is like, your one of your questions is like, hey, where do they acquired? You were just kind of talking about that in an article I read from SANS. Some are just readily available on the web. They're not all on the dark web.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. They were on the dark web, I would say, and they found themselves out of there. So if you're so you're right. Usually these ones are the easiest ones or the cheapest ones. Very easy to detect, and the ones that are using them will be probably detectable as well. So the more serious ones will do the extra mile and protecting themselves. But I would say, I don't know if we have time for that, but so let's say in general, we have 3 groups of these. Once you enter the dark web or not, you have 3 groups of phishing kits. Low level, very primitive, I would say generic ones, mid-level, which is the tailor-made, but still very generic one, and the upper level, which are super sophisticated, coded. So really heavy hackers like coded their ways to get over the SAGs, get over all the phishing detections, and handle malware detection as well, handle attachment, HTML files, and that stuff.
So for our audience, let's talk about, you mentioned that, they come complete. One of the things obviously is, a lot of these are, you go out to a website, it's prompting you for your MFA, etc. It's where a token's going to get hijacked, whatever it may be. How can you get, what are signs that a website have been created?
So I would say, first of all, you should go back and think about the good old stuff and sign that you remember about phishing. Because most of them, as we said, most of the phishing kits are generic, so they can't tailor-made themselves to each and every one. That's a hacker activity. So I would say first, you look for URLs that are inconsistent, right? You look for, so when you look closely at the website address, the URL in your browser bar, right? You can see typos there, strange characters, or these things. You can see generic greetings, for example, dear customer, right? Not something you would expect like someone to write hey Charles, or hey Andrew, what's going on? So dear customer. By the way, I'm saying the same thing about my employees that are shooting emails via cold outreach emails, right? Don't do it, right? Or do it wisely. Tailor-made it so the client will think that they're real, so therefore they're real. So generic greetings, suspicious urgency, very important, because they need it fast, they need it now, most of them. Low quality design, most of them that are impostering, I don't know, DHL website, most of them will be a low level design. If you can, Andrew, remember back days of Cyberfish days where we located visually web pages, we could immediately identify the good ones and the bad ones. So usually phishing kits will be visually not so authentic, not so good ones, and you can see the differences.
Got it.
These are most of the things.
Yeah. So Ann says, did I hear correctly that the best defense only stops about 50 to 60% of phishing emails on me?
Well, I know, and we know a lot. I would say the best SEG protection is done today by Microsoft E5 against phishing, I mean, and that will not go over 55 or 60% detection of all phishing. So 100 phishing coming in, top 60 will be detected.
Yeah. And I remember
that's the best level. And that goes on for years. Like it's for the last 3 years, didn't improve, although the detection was improved, but the hackers improved as well their methods and their technology. So it stayed. So again, to get the phishing detected, you need something beyond or above, whatever you call it, the SEG, the original SEG. These are not enough. It's not their main thing.
Yeah, and to close out, great question, Ann, and we'll wrap up here at the top of the hour. First, Amit, thanks a million for coming on.
Sure.
I guess to put an exclamation point on Amit's, I put one on here that I got, and you can see obviously it doesn't look legit McAfee if you take your time and look at it, and then look at obviously who it's coming from. But really interesting, and I hope you all got something out of this as well. So Jim, anything you want to add as we wrap up?
No, I just want to thank Amit for coming on and sharing this knowledge. This is really great stuff. So great call all the way around today. Thanks everyone for your feedback and your participation.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you guys.
Or Jim, will you be out next week, Jim? And
yeah, I'll be on my way back from. Okay. We're a sponsor next week at Connect IT in Vegas. So folks that are out there, please come by, say hi. Let's meet up in person. And this call will happen again next week, but I'll be on in 2 weeks.
All right.
Thanks. I'll be here next week, Andrew. And
awesome,
I'll be the following week because I'm in Dallas for a different event. So we'll see.
Awesome, guys. Thanks so much.
Bye, everyone. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.